In this question, we're asked to find the zeros of a function, or how do we find the zeros of a function from a graph? And then the second part is asked, how are they related to x-intercepts? So let's take a look at this visually. If I have a, say I have a graph, and I'll label, let's see, I'll label this one as my x-axis, and then label the other one, the other axis, as my y. And if I have a, let's see, a graph, it's doing something like this, okay? So at this point, I guess I can mark this, it doesn't matter what the value is, but at the point that is crossing the x-axis, in this case, the x-axis would serve as our domain. So these are the input values. And when I pull a value from the x-axis, this particular value, whatever it is, you can see that my function, the output, the y value has to be equal to 0. Because if you look at the where it is corresponding to the y-axis, that is 0. And also this point here where it's also crossing the x-axis. So if you're looking at a graph and you want to find the zeros of a function, just look to see at the point where it, see, let's sum this up, basically where the graph crosses the x-axis. All right. So in this particular point, in this particular graph, excuse me, there are actually 3 points that three points where this graph crosses the x-axis. So there would be three zeros of this particular function. Next, how are they related to? How are these zeros of a function related to x-intercepts? Well, again, the x-intercept. Whenever you have an x-intercept, let's say that value in this case. Let's just give this some numbers here. So let's call this -2. We'll call this +2, and then we'll call this 4. Well, the y value, since these are all x-intercepts, is intercepting the x graph, the y values will always be zeros for your x-intercept. Okay, as an example, so the x-intercept will tell you what x value corresponds to the 0 of the particular function. Okay, so if I plug in a -2, the output of this function that I'm going to get is 0, and if I plug in a +2 or +4, the output I get would be a 0. So that's how the x-intercepts and the zeros are related. Zeros of a function are related to each other.